This is All India Radio. In Spotlight now, we bring you discussion on cabinet decisions. The participants are Siddharth, political analyst, and Ruchika Chitravanshi, journalist.
Good evening. Some very important announcements coming in the cabinet today that will interest people in general and businesses. Let's start with the most important announcement that we've all been looking forward to regarding the vaccination for COVID. The cabinet today announced that people above 60 years of age will be able to get vaccination from March 1st. And those who are over 45 years of age and have comorbidities will also be given access from 1st March. Siddharth, can you share some details of what this announcement means and what are the details that we have so far?
Well, this is an announcement that everyone was waiting for the last several weeks now, because this is one of the most crucial aspects of getting back to normal. The government has announced today is that people over 60 and those with comorbidities over 45 can go to one of the 10,000 government-run centers where they can get free vaccine, or they can go to the identified 20,000 private centers. Now, the critical part there is that the government has also decided to, cap the charge that these private centers can levy, and the announcement is expected in the next few days. So that will be a comforting factor for a lot of people who would prefer going to the private sector, and it will also ease pressure on the government-run centers. The infrastructure will not be tested to the limit given the current state of affairs. It is very important that adequate manpower is available both in the private sector as well as in the government sector. Apart from the price cap that will be announced, the government is also going to give out a list of comorbidities that would be covered. So that will again that will provide much greater clarity. So that is how things pan out. And what this is going to do is that of the 27 crore people who are expected to be covered by the second phase, around 10 crore are over 60 and who are seen to be more vulnerable to contracting this infection. So it will provide a lot of comfort. It will help people get back to normal lifestyle and will slowly build confidence.
Absolutely. Especially the old parents and grandparents who've been stuck inside the houses this is their chance to get back to normalcy, and obviously for the economy as well. Do we know what is the process? We know that there is a COVID app where health workers and frontline workers so far have been registered and then they have got the vaccination. How will it work for those who are above 60 now?
Well, a lot of details are expected to come in, but yes, the expectation is that people will have to register on this app, and especially if you want to go to the government-run centers, then there will be a certain protocol which has to be followed. So those details will be spelled out.
Absolutely. And we'd like to tell our listeners that the budget also allocated rupees 35,000 crore towards the COVID vaccination drive. And with the promise that as more funds are required, Finance Ministry will provide more funds. One of the other important announcements from today's cabinet briefing is regarding the production-linked incentive scheme. Now, we've talked about this scheme in the past week also for the telecom sector. Today, this has been approved for the pharmaceutical industry, the laptops and IT hardware and such. Siddharth, can you share what does it mean and what are the incentives that we are looking for through the scheme?
So basically, the production-linked incentive, as listeners would know, is a scheme which is meant to provide incentive for incremental production, incremental domestic sales as well as exports. It is a 2 lakh crore scheme which is spread over 5 years. And there are multiple sectors which are covered by it, IT and pharma being two important sectors. Apart from that, there is leather and there are a host of other sectors which are part of this PLI scheme. Two elements have already been implemented. One is on the smartphone and the mobile manufacturing, and the other is on some elements of the pharmaceutical industry. The idea is to develop large domestic production facility and reduce our import dependence, because in case of sectors like electronics, pharmaceuticals, which are crucial sectors, there's a huge import bill, and the idea is now to move some of the production to India, get domestic producers to produce on a large scale and be part of the global value chain. So in that direction, there were two more sectors where PLI scheme was cleared. One is on the IT hardware side, where basically it's a 7,500 crore allocation over 4 years. And the idea is to produce laptops and tablets in the country. So this will obviously be through a bidding process, and the companies which will be eligible will be decided through a selection process. And the expectation is that not only will we have made in India laptops and tablets, which are in huge demand, but it will also create about 1.8 lakh jobs in the country. The other crucial sector is pharmaceuticals, where India has a major strength, but we are seen to be weak on basic drugs and chemicals. So basically what has been cleared is a 15,000 crore scheme where the incentive ranges between 5% and 10%. And this is to be implemented between 2022-23 financial year to 2027-28 financial year. And the expectation is that there will be incremental sales of close to 3 lakh crore, 2.94 lakh crore to be precise, and about 2 lakh crore of exports which will take place in the pharmaceutical sector. The focus is on generic medicines, medicines which are off patent or are also going off patent. So these could include anything under the generic scheme sector. Then there is biopharma. There are active pharma ingredients, basically APIs or basic drugs, cancer medicines, anti-diabetic medicines, cardiovascular medicines. So it's a large spectrum of segments in the pharma space where the PLI scheme is going to be implemented. Going forward, there are the other sectors where the PLI scheme is to be extended. So what is going to happen is that the idea is that by 31st of January, all the approvals from the government side are in place. And then we move to the next stage where companies are invited to participate. And there is the companies that make the cut get into business of manufacturing, and the scheme gets rolling.
Absolutely. So manufacturing has been a big push, as you mentioned, that there will be a lot of jobs also that will be created. Can you share how has our experience been with the PLI scheme for the other sectors? I know these are still initial days, but do we see encouraging signs, and what do you hope this will achieve for us in the coming days?
Well, if you look at it, PLI for manufacturing mobile phones has been cleared. And it was a large scheme where, basically just the revenue part expected to be of the order of 80,000 crore for the government. And some large companies, such as the contract manufacturers for Apple, have come in under the scheme. There is Samsung, which is also part of the scheme. And then there are Indian manufacturers who would also join. So it's been a great success as far as mobile phones are concerned. It's just that things will get rolling out soon now. So basically, it is still under implementation at the moment, and it will take shape in the coming years. But the initial response is very encouraging. Similarly, there has been a PLI scheme for medicines, basically bulk drugs and medical devices also is part of this whole scheme. So there were about 250 odd registrations that were there earlier. And again, the response is quite good on the bulk drug side as well.
Since we've been talking about the whole private sector participation and how companies, domestic manufacturers especially, stand to benefit, today the Prime Minister has said in an address that how important it is for the public-private partnerships to take off, and he's talked about divestment and asset monetization. What were the key takeaways for you from what the PM said, and how is it indicative of where the public policy in this regard is headed?
Well, as you know, the Prime Minister has been participating in several webinars post the announcement of the Union budget, and whether it was infrastructure or defense or healthcare for that matter, the key themes of the budget. And today, one of the most significant aspects of the budget was this whole focus on privatization and on asset monetization. And the mantra from the Prime Minister seemed to be monetize and modernize. That was the mantra. And he has indicated a very ambitious target of achieving 2.5 trillion rupees of investment just through the monetization route, where, things like highways and airports and pipelines, stadiums, railway assets, they will be put out for monetization, and the money that is raised will be used for further asset creation or, as he said, for meeting the core requirements of the economy. There was a very important message from the Prime Minister that privatization is the need of the hour, especially when it comes to loss-making entities. And the message was very clear that that the government is not going to, continue with loss-making PSUs, which don't serve any purpose today. And at the same time, by privatizing them, it will not just free up resources that may be going into some of them and use it for development or job creation requirements. At the same time, the Prime Minister also suggested that, change of ownership often does wonders to the company. And for all, privatization of a sick company can, result in a new owner who turns it around and gets the company back to its glory days. So it was a very, very important message from the Prime Minister.
Yes, absolutely. Change can be a good thing. And there is another change that seems to be happening in Puducherry. Today, the cabinet has approved the proposal to impose the precedence rule in the Puducherry and said that no opposition party was willing to stake claim. Can you elaborate for us how the situation has evolved there and what to expect in the coming days?
The Puducherry House is the short of majority, and the Congress government, which was there, has lost majority. So the other opposition parties have not staked claim to form the government, given that elections are due in a couple of months from now. And so they have chosen to wait in the sidelines, resulting in the governor recommending President's rule, which has been recommended by the Union Cabinet. And so as things stand now, there will be President's rule in the Union Territory of Puducherry. And soon we'll have elections which are announced by the Election Commission, given that the term of the Assembly is due to end just in a few weeks from now.
Siddharth, they want me to ask one more question, and don't think I can ask more about Puducherry. Can we address one more about disinvestment maybe, or something else that you want to cover? So obviously there's a lot of thrust on disinvestment. Even in this budget, we have a big disinvestment target. A lot of things that in the previous governments we've been sitting on, we are hoping that finally we will see some disinvestment happening. What are the important PSUs where you think that government is going to take the stake out, is going to divest its stake? And why is it that we have not been able to meet our divestment targets for so many years?
So if you look at it, to go back a little, so we had followed a policy of strategic sale or disinvestment or privatization, whatever you call it, until 2004. And after a change of regime at the center, then government decided against strategic sale and decided on a policy which resulted in listing of several companies and subsequent stake reduction by the government. But the overriding philosophy was that the government will own more than 51% to retain the public sector character. Now, since the NDA government came to power in 2014, there has been a change in policy again, and it has been talking of strategic sale. It has been talking of selling a lot of these loss-making companies, but after taking out a lot of those physical assets such as land. While there has been a lot of discussion, there was a bit of reluctance, especially in the bureaucracy, regarding the sale of public sector companies, and the government has sought to comfort the bureaucracy through legal changes and other institutional support. And it has also used this time to build a strong pipeline of companies which can be privatized. So the Niti Aayog, which had been given the task, first decided to look at a lot of loss-making companies and recommended a long list of companies, some of which could find buyers, but there were a lot of companies which didn't find buyers, especially when assets like land were taken away. So those companies are now headed for closure, and some of the companies have also been cleared or recommended for closure by the Union Cabinet. Then there was a second set of recommendations on companies such as Air India, and which the government sought to privatize during its first term up to 2019, but it did not succeed in the privatization efforts. So towards the end of its tenure, it did make an attempt. The whole privatization exercise for Air India was reopened, and as you know, currently it is underway. In the meantime, some 4 or 5 other companies, important companies such as Bharat Petroleum, Shipping Corporation of India, Concor, BEML, they have been identified for strategic sale, and that process is underway. In fact, the expectation is that by the end of the first quarter of the next financial year, which is by June, maybe 2 deals involving Air India and Bharat Petroleum may go through, whereas Shipping Corporation and BEML are in the process. There is also a fresh set of pipeline which is being prepared for the next round of strategic sale. And in the meantime, what the government has also done is put in place a new policy which states that, barring 4 areas which are strategic sectors like energy and atomic energy and transportation, the other sectors would be, PSUs in other sectors would be privatized. So this would mean that steel companies or heavy engineering companies would be privatized in the coming years. Obviously, the sequence and the timing would be decided in the coming months. At the same time, the government has also decided to privatize 3 public sector banks. So that is something that is breaking new ground, as well as one general insurance company. So the next stage is that the Niti Aayog has been tasked with identifying these companies, these banks and insurance company, which can be privatized, and then the process gets rolling.
Absolutely. Exciting days ahead. Some very important announcements coming in today, and the Prime Minister's address today also has set the tone for the things to come, and clearly private sector is going to be an important stakeholder also in the vaccination process. Thank you so much, Siddharth, for sharing your very, very interesting insights today with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on cabinet decisions. The participants were Siddharth, political analyst, and Ruchika Chitravanshi, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our website, newsonair.com. You may email your opinion about the program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.